72-unit multifamily development off of Holiday Road. There was on the site plan a 100-foot sidewalk along Holiday Road. It's a very short amount of right-of-way. The parcel is shaped kind of odd where it's only 100 feet. So in working through, actually constructing that sidewalk, developer came back to me, said, hey, just wanted to touch base on the sidewalk. I took a look at it. The ordinance doesn't require a sidewalk. 100 feet of sidewalk, that's a third of a football field distance. It's over a mile, I think a mile and a half from the nearest pedestrian facility. So the applicant is not going to be constructing that sidewalk. I think moving forward, we want to look more, and this is part of the zoning ordinance rewrite, requiring sidewalks as they are, as they relate to our non-motorized plan, but not requiring them arbitrarily.
Everywhere? Yeah, good call. Wonderful.
And then the other item that I wanted to provide an update with is the special work session. So we're looking at, and I talked with Dan about this, but we're looking to host a educational work session between Planning Commission and Board of Trustees. We're looking at having Housing North come and just provide some overview of best management practices related to zoning to support workforce housing. And so I'm looking at December 12th if there's not a ZBA meeting. And if there is, we'd be looking at December 19th for a special meeting. Or is that too close to the holidays? Wanted to just get some feedback from the Planning Commission.
What were those dates again?
12th and
Yeah, it's the second Tuesday or the third Tuesday.
Soon will you know that there's not a ZBA meeting?
We would know by November 12th. So that's when we require,
Okay.
yeah, so we would know by the end of next week.
Oh, okay, all right. And then you'll let us know?
and that'll be in the evening?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Will that be hosted by Yarrow, or who are they going to lean on?
Yes,
Yes.
Yarrow would be the
Okay.
presenter.
Yarrow Brown.
They are looking to hire a Grand Traverse County coordinator, but she won't have someone brought in time, so it would be Yarrow.
Sounds good. Any other questions for Claire?
Okay. But feel free to follow up with me separately if there's any concerns with those dates, and then we'll also reach out to the Board of Trustees to solidify a date.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is item number 9, new business before the Planning Commission. Well, Mindy, take a break. We'll come back to you. Thank you for jumping up. And we'll review sketch plan review under True North proposed expansion. And someone from the development team's here.
Yeah.
Come on forward. Let's have a little conversation.
Hello, my name is Rick Turner. I'm with Diamond Z Engineering, representing True North Energy. True North owns the facility at 1031 East Hammond. You probably know it as a Shell station, but it is a True North Energy station, and they market gasoline under the Shell name. They've had that station for several years. I know, I believe you had a write-up that showed Schmuckel Oil used to own it. So they bought it several years ago, and they've been going around town rebuilding some facilities. The closest, I think, is the one on Airport and I can't remember the cross street.
Lafreniere?
Yeah, Lafreniere. Yeah, that one just recently got redone. This one would be a complete tear down and rebuild, as opposed to that one, which was an extensive remodel of an existing building. So True North has looked at this facility and said, hey, we've got this property around us that's available. Maybe we'll buy that property also, and we can move our facility a little further back from the road, since there's talk about road changes taking place, or the multi-use path that is going to go in, and it allows us to get further back from that. It also allows us the ability to put a car wash in. So that is the layout that we've given to you. And do you show things on the screen, or do people have those?
They've got everything
Okay,
in the packet.
so they've seen it. All right. As far as the layout goes, we typically like the building to the rear, and that building is way beyond the setback requirement. In fact, the canopy is behind the setback requirements. So we don't have any issues there. Probably one of the more obvious issues is the parking is in front of the building. Although I would say with the canopy blocking the building and the building sitting so far back from the street, possibly that's not as much of an issue. And we're also looking to put landscaping up along the street. You and I, Claire, had a conversation about the multi-use path and about whether we could get some landscaping in there. We've moved another 10 feet back, so we've got a 10-foot strip. And that'll get landscaped to provide a buffer along the road. As far as the building design goes, and the car wash complements the building, they're both brick buildings with ephes fascia up towards the top and a band, metal details along the top. On the building, we've got an entry feature that is actually stone with a curved metal top, and then an entry feature right above the door, which would provide that recessed or covering over the front door, I guess is a better way of saying it. The windows all have sloped metal awnings on them. So with those couple of things said, I know we're not meeting the idea of having a peaked roof, but we've got some features on the building that I think give it some architectural interest that may make it palatable to you. When you look at commercial architecture like Starbucks and Panera and those kind of things, they tend to be more along this style. So that's the style that the architect chose and True North agreed with, and in fact, we're building it all over the Midwest. I think that's all I've got at this point. Any questions?
Questions of the commission?
Drive location's the same?
Drive locations are moving slightly. We moved the one on East Hammond further to the east. I think the one on 3 Mile is in about the same spot.
Can you speak to, as far as demo plans, will the tanks be adjusted at all? Will they remain in play?
Yeah, we're going to replace all the underground fueling system and put in new tanks, new lines. Both of those will be double wall with leak detection to assure that, if there was a leak, we'd find it. But with the double wall, you typically don't have leaks.
Sure. I was just curious, if as a piece of that investigation, will there be like an assessment done at the time of removal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and the assessments are done in accordance with what LARA requires for the amount of contamination you find in the ground. So when you pull up lines and tanks, you take samples and test the soil to see if it's contaminated or not. If it is, you have to pull soil out or remediate it in place.
And last question for me is, only because I'm trying to think through, like you had mentioned future conversations possibly with the road commission, that intersection overall. Have you gotten a read on anyone in terms of their future plans or relocations, things of that magnitude?
I've seen the plans the road commission has that you've passed along.
Yeah, I can speak to that. The road commission worked with OHM to put together future plans for a roundabout, which is likely 10 years or more into the future, but they do have kind of planned circulation, driveway locations, turning lane locations. So I did send the draft plans on to the road commission and haven't received preliminary feedback, but from what I can see, the driveway locations are consistent with the road commission's plans.
Got it. Okay.
I have a few, just wanted to mention a couple things from a zoning standpoint. So as you know, this is East Bay Corners, which is there's a little bit of a disconnect between kind of the vision for East Bay Corners and through the master plan process, kind of this placemaking, multimodal, mixed use. Prior to the applicant coming in, we had been working with the previous property owner on kind of a mixed-use design, but in talking with the applicant, there's interest, a lot of the entire site isn't going to be used, so it's the existing site is 1.3 acres. They're adding an additional 6.8, almost 7 acres. And so there is some area that could be an opportunity for the township to partner with True North to put in like a pedestrian plot, like some sort of a plaza placemaking, because we're going to have the trail going right through there, the Safe Routes to School Trail. So just wanted to mention that that would be something that the township would take on, but there could be an opportunity to partner with True North just because there is some unused space along Hammond Road to put that in. And seating area, potentially art, kind of an area for people to stop and rest while they're using the trail. And then also just wanted to bring up a couple items from our zoning requirements. One, and I've talked with the applicant, is the groundwater protection standards. So those will be applicable as a part of this review. We did confirm that a traffic impact study, the increase in traffic generation is not going to trigger a traffic impact study. There are a number of different design requirements, and a few of them were alluded to, but some of the things that we would be looking for in an updated site plan would be pedestrian circulation within the development, street trees, and I think that with moving the parking lot 10 feet back further, I think there's definitely an opportunity for street trees and some of the traffic calming that we're looking for along Hammond and in East Bay Corners. And then I think the other two items are will be under the purview of the Planning Commission related to the design requirements, the not allowing more than 10% of the parking to be in front of the building, as well as the peaked roof. So some of those are inconsistent with what you see in a typical gas station and those designs. So I think those will be kind of areas for Planning Commission feedback, but.
Is this zoning is this specific to the East Bay Corners?
It is, yeah. There's design standards in East Bay Corners and airport service, and those are really the only districts that we currently have design standards in.
Yeah, because when I was looking through it, this is my unfortunate urban planning hat. We've been talking about like, how do we calm down that intersection, right? And with you moving a building further away from the intersection, it just creates even more dead space in between, like, the traffic pattern and visibility through that whole area. So when I was looking at it, a couple things also popped out in my mind was signage. Are you going to retain the existing sign?
We're talking about retaining that sign,
Okay.
move it further back from the road,
Okay, got it.
and change some panels on it so the car wash name could get on it.
Okay. Because I also think, in corridors like this, the trait generally is to move the buildings closer to the road, slow people down, create some pinch points, if you will. I understand with what you have going on in your mindset with trying to lay this thing out for cars, but I also just kind of question that in terms of like location. What would that look like? Could it fit? Would that be appropriate there? Just noodling on it is something different. I know that you've got a proposal before us, but as I've seen in other places too, like that's not so uncommon, and trying to still adhere to because if you did move it forward, put the parking behind it, it effectively would shield everything, but it would completely redesign your site. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, we've been approached to do that in a number of locations, and True North's stance on it is no. Every time. And they come at it from a standpoint of trying to run a business and trying to make money, and they've got good ideas about how to do that and how to make a viable business. And they said it doesn't make sense to us to invest and then have our customers not be able to see the facility.
I think you can, I recognize that this kind of pedestrian scale type thing is our long-term vision for East Bay Corners. But I think you can accomplish some of the same traffic calming with street trees. It gives you the feeling of a tighter corridor. And I think all of this is completely moot if the speed limit remains 55 through there.
Sure.
Which we're, I mean, because, I think, for me personally, I think this, the design is much better looking than the building that's there, I think,
True,
personally.
true.
The ones I've seen around here. And I love that, the fact that, that we're going to have trails through there. If we can allow those trails to be, safe and aesthetically pleasing with some landscaping around them, I like that idea. I think it's overall pretty good. I mean, I think it would be difficult to do, I'm trying to think, if you're parking in the rear, you got to move things up, and then you have the
Oh, yeah.
canopy over the stations is going to be closer to the road.
Isn't there
What about-
side, like across, sometimes you'll see side parking and then across from that. I don't know if that's an option here, I'm just saying that I've seen that.
What gas station is down there in Munson in airport access? Is
That's
that a
it.
True North?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
What about that type of layout where it's kind of side by side, not necessarily parking in the rear, it's side by side, so you get a little bit of road, like the building would be up towards the southwest corner, but then you also have the pumps to the west or east of that, and then you could have the car wash in the back. I think this is a huge improvement to what's there, but if we're trying to do a little bit of both, I think you could achieve it there.
So that one, it has, the building and pumps are laid out perpendicular to 31.
Right.
Right, yeah. I don't,
I know exactly what you're talking about. And last thing for me, and then I'll stop for a little bit, is I did notice you've maintained, like you've upgraded the building to brick, but not necessarily the pavilion itself with the white posts. And from a consistency standpoint, like I think of there's a couple of them now. Costco's the one that we just visited, that's bricked all of that in with an aesthetic that matches and is
I think
consistent.
that is a nice tie-in. That's
Because, I mean, if you're tearing the old one down, then, I think it would tie the whole corner together a little better.
yeah.
It's a little wonky with the white, and maybe some correspondence with the sign itself, so that
Yeah,
everybody
well,
kind
yeah.
of plays
We
together.
could put something around the base of the sign.
Be a nice feature.
Change the yellow to the brown. The color scheme too.
I have a question, probably more for you, Claire. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but, we talk about I agree, the 55 going through there is ridiculous. But if we're planning on putting, pedestrian walkways and things like that, wouldn't it only make sense that they slow that traffic down?
Yeah, so actually, I finally got an interesting response to this, because everything we hear from Road Commission is they can't do that. That's mandated by the state police. Road Commission can't, the only way to change the speed limit is through traffic study. Generally, with the design of that roadway, people are going over 55. They're not going to reduce the speed limit. They could, potentially increase it. Highly doubt they would bump it up from 55. But our engineer with Prine and Newhoff that's helping us with the Safe Routes to School, designing all of the non-motorized pathway, I thought had a really good point when we were meeting with property owners and working with easements, was that as we work through these design improvements, as we put in the hybrid, the hawk signal at the entrance to Grand Traverse Academy, as we work through street trees, put in as we start to have a human scale to it, and pedestrians and bicycles are using this corridor and crossing at multiple locations along the corridor, that's the traffic calming that's going to occur. And that's when you can have a traffic study or a speed study. And so potentially we could, with these types of improvements, with the change in the land use and the pedestrian bicycle scale, then you can have a discernible impact on the traffic. And if you have a traffic study done at that time, that could come back with the 85th percentile is 45 as opposed to 55, and could give you the data to support reducing the speed limit. So I thought that was the most positive or hopeful response that I've heard related to reducing speed limits.
It's better than nothing. It seems a little bit like the cart before the horse, but okay.
Great. All right.
At least there's hope.
So I have a question about the car wash and the water usage. You know, we're seeing a lot more car washes become what they're calling green, recycling their water and such. Does this have any of that technology?
I don't think they're planning on having recycled water at this one. This particular kind of car wash tends to be fairly low volume. You know, they're not running, 60 cars an hour through there.
And that all just goes into the sewer?
Yeah, sanitary.
Okay. Is there any risk of any substantial water outside of it for groundwater? I know that, Claire, you mentioned 220, right?
Yeah, and that would be related to the gasoline storage.
Okay.
And
Is there anything related to car wash?
we do, it's a special land use permit, so there are conditions specific to, requirements in the zoning ordinance specific to car washes. They're a little bit light on the environmental side. They do require, hook up to municipal water and sewer.
So that would apply, but they're, like you said, a little light.
Okay. Any other feedback for the applicant?
Just a question. Currently, the facility that's there was, what, 1.3 acres? Is that correct? And then you're adding on 6 acres additional?
6.8, yeah.
Right.
We won't be using all that.
Yeah, but question one was, what would be the new footprint of the new facility? And then secondly, what else are you going to be planning on?
We are only planning on doing the new station that we gave you the drawing on, which I'm guessing, without looking at, I got the drawing in front of me, I guess I could look. I think we're going out about, well, we're extending out about 150 feet to the east from the existing station and 50 feet to the north. So then there's a considerable amount of property to the north of there that'll probably come up for sale.
Probably tops 2 acres now. I mean, so I was just curious.
Yeah.
Is there anything planned for with respect to charging stations on there?
True North has put some charging stations in. It's a big initiative that Shell has and is trying to encourage their members to, or people that have Shell stations to put in. In fact, I think Shell pays for a portion of it. True North's stance on it is they just haven't seen the market there to this point. And it gets back to the idea of making money. They say if we're not going to make money, we don't want to invest in it. But certainly at this site, we would have some space for it. There to the right of the dumpster enclosure, there's 3 spaces that when I laid it out, I kind of laid it out with the idea of that possibly being car charging. Well, 2 spaces, I guess. So it wouldn't be a large charging area unless they went,
Today it wouldn't be, but.
Yeah, unless they went further to the north.
Additional acreage.
yes.
Is there any, like, future shot at saying, okay, fine, we're picking up this extra acreage, if this thing really goes, we can expand out on it?
Sure. Yeah, then we'd come back to you and with a layout and get that approved.
Is there any other facilities that you're thinking about, any amenities for, since we have the trails, any type of amenities for the public in there?
There's a couple picnic tables that are going in on the one end of the building. There's an increased food offer that's going to go inside. So there may be some things that are of interest to people that are biking past, walking past.
And the market section would be pretty much what it is today, just food, beverages, and things of that nature?
Yeah, but more food items are going to be available.
Okay. But there's no thought about any expansion on that, then?
I think as far as what they're selling in the store, I think, yeah, they do sell additional items at new stores just because there's more space for it.
Okay, just questioning, that's all. Thank you.
I have another question about the peak and how that's part of the zoning. So obviously they don't have that here, but I personally like this design, and I think it looks really sharp down on Munson, the new building. It's really beautiful. I mean, can this satisfy
Yeah, I
that?
think they're looking for architectural features, not a just completely flat
Okay.
roof. So
Okay,
I
all right.
think, as we go through those standards, I think there
Okay.
is some flexibility for the planning commission to review the design. And there, there's a brick facade, and there's
Right.
definitely some
Yeah,
architectural
the arch,
features
Like
that,
you said, the awnings, I mean, I think it's a sharp building, I just, okay.
Claire, we're going to be keeping the ordinances with respect to lighting and any,
right, yep, so, yeah, everything is dark sky requirements.
okay.
Yeah, and we've given you a photometric plan. You probably need a magnifying glass or a bigger version of the drawing to read that. But the lights are all full cutoff fixtures, no light going from here up.
Yeah, because the station that you have on Munson is fairly bright. I know it quite well.
Now that, I mean, that could have to do with,
The reason why is.
How bright the lights are.
Street from it, that's why I know.
oh, you do.
Yes, I do.
So changing this one won't help that one, but,
It's a beginning.
yeah. So, we can talk about lighting levels and, what the maximum is, and if something needs adjusted on this one, we may need to do something. But
Yeah.
certainly with this site being bigger than, well, no, I don't know that it's bigger than Munson, but with everything further back from the road, the lights are further back from the road, that makes a difference.
Thank you.
And I presume there'd be a landscape plan associated with that too, because that's one thing I did not
Yes.
notice.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we've got stormwater plans and landscaping plans being done up, and we will get those turned in for the next meeting.
Okay.
Anything else I'm missing, we'll turn that into.
Yeah, yep, so this site sketch plan review is, yeah, just a preliminary, generally it's just the sketch of the site plan, so all of the detailed, they'll go through the Metro Fire Review, Road Commission,
Got it.
detailed engineering, landscaping.
One last question, the additional acreage that you have, you're just going to leave it natural?
It'll remain natural for now unless they put it up for sale. I don't envision the property to the east going up for sale because it's right where there's a sanitary sewer easement coming in and diagonaling across the property. So that pretty much makes that a dead zone, which is part of the reason why in talking to Claire, we talked about, maybe it's some opportunity for you all to do something of interest in connection with multi-use path.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments for the applicant? Okay. Thank you for your time. Hope that was
Thank you
helpful.
very much.
Yep,
We'll be back.
sounds good. Okay, is Mindy, can we grab Mindy? Yeah, let's just keep rolling. We've already blown my half an hour, so, I can't go back.
Found her.
Well, maybe we can start the public hearing. All right, welcome back. The next item on the agenda is zoning amendment 3-23. It's the vehicular stream bridge. This is a public hearing, so we will invite everyone to come up to the lectern, and we will open the public hearing at 7:14 and a half.
Can I give just a quick overview of the text amendment?
Yes,
Just for
absolutely.
the public's benefit. So this was an application brought on by MDNR. It's a text amendment to allow vehicular bridges, to allow stream crossing on, stream crossings just in general, township-wide. So you'll recall at the October meeting, the Planning Commission reviewed draft language. We made some changes, and you'll see the updated changes. I just wanted to real quickly highlight the changes that we made. So we added the wheelchair, both manual and powered, under number 1 for the pedestrian trail. Added the side yard and rear yard setback requirements in addition to just noting the front yard requirement. Per the request from the applicant, we clarified that the bridge shall be anchored no less than 5 feet upland from the ordinary high water mark measured horizontally, just to clarify that it was not that measurement. And then added that there shall be no more than one pedestrian or vehicular bridge or combination thereof for every 1,000 feet of stream frontage on the same lot, to clarify that it could be either pedestrian or vehicular.
Yep.
So just wanted to clarify those changes since the last time you reviewed that. And we have MDNR is in attendance, and then we also, Christy Summers, on behalf of the applicant, is participating remotely.
Okay, good to know. Got it.
And then you'll see, last thing, I printed off just a rendering of the site plan that's on your desk as well.
Okay. Thank you. With that, we've got the public hearing open, but at the same token, I do want to hear from the applicant. So if you guys wouldn't mind coming up and just kind of addressing if there's anything new or any adjustments from the last time that we spoke about this, and make some clarifying points for us.
Thank you. Anna Marie Bauer, I'm the regional field planner for DNR Parks and Recreation out of the Cadillac District, so working up here in East Bay Township in the Traverse City area. Since we knew we weren't going to have use of the screen, we do have the, oops, is it the right way for you? The aerial photograph of the park. So the bay, the green is the state park. And what I'd like to point out, and the reason we're here, is Mitchell Creek bisects the state ownership. So this is the campground. We have approximately 29 acres to the south of Mitchell Creek. And so we'd like to be able to connect those 2 parcels of land, obviously with a bridge that accommodates vehicles, and then also pedestrian use, so that we can utilize the property and do improvements into the park that we'd like to do. So that's the reason.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Any questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you. We may come back. And because we do have a public hearing going, anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this, feel free to come forward. Okay. That makes it pretty easy. And we can close the public hearing unless they need to say anything.
That's a congratulations.
Okay. Word travels fast. We can close the public hearing at 7:17 and bring it back to the commission for conversation or discussion. It feels like Claire addressed everything we asked her to address in the updates.
Say so?
If there's no questions,
I have a question on the rendering, but it doesn't really pertain to what
That's all
we're
right.
talking about.
let's kick it around.
What are the white circles in the pedestrian path? There's 2 of them. Is it just trees that didn't get colored?
Actually, it looks like I think it actually goes somewhere.
Like, walk
Yeah.
up in the
trail and there's like a wooden lookout over the marsh or whatever?
I think
You're
so.
welcome to speak at the microphone if you wanted to.
That's what I see it as, but
Yes, so I mentioned the 29 acres that's on the south side of Mitchell Creek. We really don't have any definite plans for that parcel pending, the outcome of this decision and whether or not we can get the road bridge. It just shows a natural area with some pedestrian pathways right now and potential, overlook, scenic overlook. So it doesn't show anything definite. Just how the open space could potentially benefit the park and the trail network.
Thank you.
You'll see in the packet, there's a potential action as well. If you're-
I'll make a motion to approve ZA 3-23 vehicular stream crossing to the East Bay Township Board of Trustees for final approval.
a second.
All right. We've got a motion by Mindy, second by Steven for a motion to recommend approval to the Township Board. All's in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All's opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for your time. And this will come up at our next month's Township Board meeting?
Yes.
This will be on the December agenda, just so that we have the approved minutes
Okay.
for the Township Board.
Got
Unless
it.
the packet's already out.
Yeah.
Okay. So for those interested, maybe check back in with staff in terms of its next approval process in front of the Township Board. Next on the docket is zoning amendment 4-23, the district stream setback conversation. And again, this is scheduled for a public hearing, but I'm going to turn it over first to staff to kind of bring us up to speed.
Okay. So as a refresher, the Planning Commission discussed this setback from, stream setback in the Regional Business District, discussed it in September and again in October. The existing ordinance has a discrepancy regarding the stream setback in the Regional Business District. So currently, in Section 412.6C, the setback is stated at 50 feet. This 50-foot setback is also reflected throughout the ordinance in the zoning map. It's also in the future land use map. There's inconsistency because there's also a footnote in the regional business district stating that the setback is 100 feet. It appears to be a typo carried over from another district standard. So the Planning Commission discussed this, agreed that the intent of the ordinance at the time of adoption was a 50-foot setback in the regional business district. And so that's reflected in this text amendment. As the Planning Commission is aware, there's an ongoing challenge, and that is that there's discrepancies and inconsistencies throughout the zoning ordinance. Part of the reason that we've been going through the ordinance rewrite is to address those inconsistencies. Additionally, the township-wide, the waterfront setbacks and buffer requirements are being reviewed to ensure consistency and protection of the resources. So this is addressing one piece of it, but as a part of the full zoning ordinance rewrite, the subcommittee is looking more holistic. It will be bringing back more holistic standards for the Planning Commission to review related to all waterfront setbacks.
Got it. What was the premise toward bringing this up again? I can't remember what we were looking at.
Concept site plan review for the corner there at 3 Mile and Munson for the AAA building going to a hotel.
Oh, yes. Okay, got it. All right, got it. Perfect. Okay, thank you for the update. This is scheduled for a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing at 7:22. Anyone who's interested in speaking on behalf of it, feel free to come up to the lectern.
Well, my comments are perhaps behind. I'm Carol Shukra, 1863 Caspian Lane. And my comments reflect my understanding at the time of writing my notes here, that it was a 100-foot setback going to be changed into a 50? You're saying it's been 50 all along?
That's the interpretation of the ordinance, is that it's throughout the ordinance, it says 50, and in one location, there's a footnote that says 100. So it's,
Well,
the maps indicate not a 100-foot setback for the regional business district.
okay. Well, I'll go forth wishing it were 100. Okay. Thank you, members of the committee, the commission. You do knock yourselves out from time to time. I come in and I do applaud you for all your efforts and your time you spent, as did Supervisor Beth Friend. In Heather Smith's letter of yesterday, 11/6/23, to you, the East Bay Charter Townships Planning Commission, Ms. Smith highlights the positives for preserving and protecting the Lower Mitchell and Baker Creeks watershed. She reminds us of the value of the creek's trees, shrubs, and vegetation. In your decision-making, please do so with ever so much caution. If we were to allow the setbacks of Section 412-6C of the Regional Business District to be reduced, here I go, with the 100, from 100 foot to 50 foot, we'd be risking much of the effectiveness of the workhorse trees, shrubs, and vegetation, because it's their roots that filter and cleanse the water flowing from those two creeks. Whether it be 100 or 50, I'm adding here now, the attributes of the cleansing service that the trees, shrubs, vegetation provide are invaluable. As planning board members, and as well as all of us citizens, we're keenly aware that Mitchell and Baker Creeks are the final and last stop before the watershed flows directly into the bay and ultimately into Lake Michigan and on into the Great Lakes water system. Business and development projects can come and go, but throughout the upcoming centuries, it's imperative that nature's ecosystems be protected. Otherwise, there's surely to be disruptive outcomes. And I thank you very much for your thoughtfulness on this matter.
Thank you.
Stacy Slater, 854 Pine Grove. I just wanted to support the discussion brought by the previous homeowner, and I kind of wondering if maybe the error wasn't on the other side and it really should be 100, because 50 just seems way outdated for now. So something to just consider. I don't know if that is something that can be discussed before anything gets stamped or rubber stamped, but it just seems, 50 feet just seems very odd to me, especially when you're looking at hotels and things like that, and the creeks. So again, supporting all of that lovely research that she did, and yeah, I think the error was the opposite.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening, Ralph Bednars, East Bay Charter Township resident on Rainy Lake. Yeah, I want to also support the recommendations from the Watershed Center, Heather Smith's recommendations. I won't read her whole correspondence to you, but I will reiterate one sentence. As we continue to face an uncertain climate future with more flooding, warmer temperatures, and more severe storms, planning best practices call for deeper, not reduced stream setbacks. I think we're entering into a real slippery slope here. I've been sitting in the subcommittee meeting for the ordinance rewrite, and the discussion is to reduce setbacks and to reduce the vegetation buffers, and for the whole stream system from 100 to 50 feet, as well as in the Lakes District to reduce that setback and the vegetative buffer there. Again, it's a slippery slope, and we're not, and in my opinion, you have a responsibility to uphold the requirements of the master plan, or the suggestions of the master plan, which is to protect and preserve our natural features. And by reducing these setbacks, you are going in the opposite direction. So I would strongly encourage you to continue to keep the setbacks in place and to strengthen them whenever you can. There's certainly science that would support that, and at this point, I don't see any of that basis being put into this. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Let's see if I can get this right. Can you hear me okay?
You're good.
All right. Well, thank you for your time today. My name is Tom Klein, and my wife Lauren and I own a small North Coast Cottages business, which is located in the Regional Business Zoning District, located between the State Farm and Mitchell Creek Apartments on the east side of 3 Mile there. So we are located directly on Mitchell Creek, as well as being in this zoning district that seems to be under discussion, whether it's the 100-foot or the 50-foot setback. So being small business owners here in the community, we are obviously very pro-business, but we're also pro-environment. And one of the most important things to us is in protecting the water, and which is what has brought many of us here to the Traverse City area and why we still reside. And it's very much what has brought up this discussion of why Hilton probably wants to build right on the corner, right across from Grand Traverse Bay. So this issue directly affects us being right on Mitchell Creek, knowing that is already an impaired waterway that 5 local organizations and this township are working hard to try to restore. As well as I said, being in that residential business zone. Now, I know a lot of this discussion has been around, whether it is 100 or 50 feet, as well as during the last board meeting on what that 100-foot setback would do to local organizations and businesses like ours that have small zones or small lots in this zoning. Meaning that if anyone ever wanted to buy it in the future and tear down the current structures and rebuild something, it would become impossible. So I'm one of those owners for those businesses that this would become impossible for. And I still would support a stronger setback condition to be able to protect our natural resources. Because while this diminishes our long-term value of our property, it doesn't change our ethical responsibility to protect those natural resources that we have here today. That likely doesn't represent all in this zone that would feel the same way, but we can't say that there aren't others. It seemed like during that last discussion there were a lot of assumptions of how those business owners would feel. Unfortunately, there haven't been too many more that have stepped up here today to say whether they really feel strongly or against the 100-foot zoning. And I really also want to commend the township that has always been, as the other gentleman mentioned, stewards towards the natural resources and has been a main focus of that prior master plan. As well as you recently put out survey results to all of the local residents and business owners, asking them what was important as you're redoing this master plan and what you would like to see changed. What came back from that was an emphasis on park and recreations, natural resources, housing walkability, and more local businesses and shops. So when we're having conversations about setbacks in favor of a big corporation from elsewhere trying to build 2 hotels on the corner and talking about changing those setbacks in opposition to what this community has said is important to them, it seems like there should be a lot more discussion on that topic rather than rushing to a decision. And so along with what the Watershed Center has recommended, and in addition, we put out a short petition just 2 days ago from one social media post out on social media asking others who also felt the same way to maintain a 100-foot setback. In that short time, we received nearly 100 signatures that I'll leave you here with today. So take that for whatever that means to you. But to me, it seems like the public needs more time to be educated on this issue and be able to have discussion about the implications that this could have for future generations to come. Now, I would love to see all of you just say we're going to follow the 100-foot setback from the recommendation from the Watershed Center, and that somehow my petition and my terrible speech here today has made you feel differently. But I'm realistic that not everybody's going to have the same opinions. All I'm asking for is time to have conversation, to continue dialogue, to explore different options. And maybe it's a creative approach, because not every business has the same impact. And that's why I feel like the regional business district in general would have a bigger impact than a residential home. Because you take a small business like mine, or one of the insurance companies, or the orthopedic center, who has a handful of customers that come in and out in a day, maybe you look at that and say a 50-foot setback is okay. But when we're talking about two enormous large hotels, a possible conference center, rooftop restaurants, spas, where there could be hundreds or even thousands of people coming in a day, just from a traffic standpoint, the implications from that, from one of the busiest intersections in the whole county, think about what that risk does to the waterways where Mitchell Creek flows directly into Grand Traverse Bay. So I know that none of these decisions are easy for you, and you have to listen to all of these different points of views. All I'm asking you is to not ignore the history that this township has in being stewards of our natural resources, and to give time, not rush to an important decision, get community stakeholders involved and discuss it, see if there's other possibilities to look at this from the standpoint of an impact that each business might have. Even if it was Hilton wanting less than 100 foot, maybe then they have to do an environmental and a traffic study and then put it to a public vote based on the results of those. These are just ideas. I leave it to all of you to discuss further, and thank you for your time.
Appreciate your feedback. Any others? Okay. We'll close the public hearing at 7:34. Bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Claire, do you know when that footnote was placed for 100 foot?
We have, so I have, it indicates in the zoning ordinance that the regional business district, that table, I think, was updated later than the other tables had been updated.
Okay.
But we don't have the exact date. But the footnote, I believe, was before the more specific regulation related to 50 feet for designated trout streams and 15 feet for a non-designated trout stream.
Do we know if anyone built after that?
We have, so, I mean, I have a few thoughts on that. So
Sure.
we, historically, the township has interpreted the ordinance, regional business district has interpreted either a 50-foot setback or a 15-foot setback for non-trout streams. The township has also interpreted the ordinance to allow for parking lots all the way up to the stream. So you'll see that along the regional business district, there's a lot of parking lots, pavement that go all the way up to the edge of the stream. So I think, I agree that both the regional business district and the industrial district are high intensity. And so if we were to have a more stringent setback regulation, a deeper setback, it would make sense to have it in the regional business district and our industrial district. Right now, we have the opposite. Our ordinance has a 50-foot for regional business district, 50-foot for industrial, and then 100-foot everywhere else for Mitchell and Baker Creek. So this is getting a little bit more broad, township-wide.
You're saying the rest of the township on Mitchell and Baker is 100?
Is currently 100 feet. Looking at other townships, I looked at Garfield, for example, they have a 50-foot setback from streams for their residential areas, but 75 feet for their, more high-intensity commercial uses. So I also had the opportunity to talk in detail with the Watershed Center with Heather. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but what Heather conveyed to me is that the regulations are really only as impactful as the exceptions that we have. So we have, a distance, a setback, say we have a 50-foot setback or a 100-foot setback, but then then generally communities have certain exceptions. So one example was that we previously allowed parking lots in that setback, which, doesn't make any sense. A parking lot is the same as a building from, stormwater, rain perspective. So I think that we really need to look carefully at the vegetative buffer requirements that we have, the active planning requiring, the deep woody, deep-rooted plants, woody vegetation. That's totally different in terms of, water quality and stormwater compared with like lawn or other types of surfaces. So that's one thing that the subcommittee has been looking very carefully at, is what's in that first 35 feet, that first 50 feet, to protect the water quality. Because I think historically, while we may have had a 100-foot setback, it wasn't, that first 100 feet wasn't always the highest quality of protection, even if there weren't buildings in the first 100 feet. So they're all important considerations. Ideally, you want to have the most natural landscape as possible and most, but we also have, the existing development patterns. We've got the existing parcels, and so it's a balance.
Yeah, it is a challenge, and I get that. I agree with you, the vegetation, native, and as a property owner on water, I understand that, and I've learned more as I've, done more research and more plantings myself. But the comment that we have a 100-foot setback in the other districts, and it's potentially 50 here, it's like you said, it just doesn't make sense that we should be more restrictive in industrial area and then here than we are with homes and such.
You mean more
mean less.
homes than,
Oh, excuse me.
I'm like, you meant the other, right?
Yes. We need to be more restrictive in the regional business district and in the industrial business district, or at least in alignment with where we have residential and all of the homes.
Just for clarification, Claire, what's before us right now is basically just striking that footnote. That's the zoning amendment we're talking about right now. Okay.
And this is being addressed in the zoning, the committee.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can share with us that,
Yeah, both Carl and
oh, you're on it
Paul
too?
are
Okay.
on the
Yeah.
zoning ordinance subcommittee.
So, I think right now, also right now, our setbacks don't require the planting in the setback, our current zoning. So you can have a setback from a parking lot, but it could just be gravel flowing into, right downhill to the stream. So I think that is going to change in the zoning ordinance rewrite. That will be a requirement, correct? As it stands right, as the draft language stands right now, that will be a requirement. If there is a setback, it has to be planted with native species.
Yep, exactly, like an active planting requirement. So oftentimes, a property owner will come in, they'll say, I don't have any vegetation, in my first 50 feet, so I'm not removing any, so I'm fine. The biggest, a big change in the draft ordinance is that there would be a requirement to establish that vegetative buffer.
Even there won't be any grandfathering in, it will be, anybody that doesn't have it is going to have to plant it?
Anybody that comes in for a land use permit.
Oh, gotcha.
That's, I guess that gets to my comments about this. I just did a quick search on the county's mapping website, and, with a 100-foot setback from Mitchell Creek, it basically makes Donor, the thing right next door, which is Lube Station,
Oil.
and one farther down, it makes them undevelopable. It basically goes to about 30 feet from the roadway. And so I guess the way I think about this is that means that they're just going to stay as they are. And right now, they're parking lots basically to the creek bed, either right on it or grass mowed to it. And so I'm trying to think what's going to happen if we have a 100-foot setback. They're just going to stay that way because nobody will be able to do anything. And we can't, So I would much rather have 50 feet that is actually planted correctly with woody vegetation and everything else that goes around with filtering water than 100 feet that is a parking lot, that's just going to stay a parking lot. So I wonder what, the decision, and this, I think, will change again in 12 months whenever the new zoning ordinance is adopted. So I guess that's my way of saying that I would be in favor of this, because I think it's going to change, and I think we don't want to make parcels that aren't developed correctly now unable to change.
I'm with you. I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm just thinking through recent ones more along Barker Creek, where we've looked at, well, gosh, what is that? Just west of Cherry. Oh. It was the
Alexandria?
Alexandria. That was right adjacent to that, wasn't it?
No,
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's
not
the
Baker
conference
Creek,
center.
the
so
waterfront,
Oh.
former waterfront.
Oh, the Irish.
Old Irish.
Irish,
That's the
Irish.
event center, Josh's place.
No.
Okay. Because I remember that was one thing that they were dancing around heavily, was that setback and trying to figure out a way around it. And that one, I felt like we kind of came to an agreement with them and a balance there. But they also, I think also had some plans to put in quite a bit more landscaping than they intended initially when we saw the plan. So I don't know, I just kind of think through it in the fact of where Carl's headed with this in terms of like, how do we be more flexible in the future? And how do we be more protective in the future in a more strategic spot? Because I'm just thinking through, when you were talking about parking lots may not have been interpreted as a structure in that case, right? So that was the loophole. Which I think we've kind of come to grips with that in the future, at least what's planned. So that's kind of why I feel comfortable with it, because yeah, what I don't want to create is a corridor full of non-conforming lots, legal non-conforming lots that can't really be brought up to code.
And right now, the parking lots, and there's really no, I just did a drive through there. I mean, the stream banks there are just, it's mostly mowed, maybe a few trees, or parking lots right at the stream level. Certainly behind the little hotel there next to the Bear Store and the other things, it's right next to it.
So if we remove the 100-foot footnote tonight, then depending on timing, it could be a 50-foot setback until whatever new ordinances are passed. But if we leave it in place, we at least then allow the new ordinance process to go through, and we land where the community wants us to land. Does that make sense? So if we leave the 100, sorry, it's been a rough week, I'm sorry, it's really been a bad week. So if we leave the footnote in for 100-foot setback for Mitchell and Barker, if we leave that footnote in, then when the zoning rewrite process goes through, we will end up with either 50 or 100 or even 75, whatever is, planned, and whatever the public comment, and any changes are made, then that will be implemented in the future, and we're guessing 12 months out or so.
I think we would have to make an amendment then to the portion that says 15 feet from a designated trout stream and 50 feet from all other streams, Mitchell and Baker Creek. So the fact that there's inconsistent language is the problem. So if we left that footnote in, we would need to change the other three places in the ordinance.
So
that
something's got to change.
One or the other.
I totally agree with the fact, I like what you had to say, I was one of the ones that was concerned about it affecting these business owners and almost sort of landlocking them to the point that they can't do anything with this property, and it's always going to be a quick lube place, and it's always going to be a whatever. But I 100% support you know, making sure that our natural resources are protected, because we've got it all up here. I mean, that's why people want to live here. So I just think it does kind of create a conundrum, and the fact that we've got this inconsistency in, and it, didn't you say it says 50 feet in several places? So there's one footnote that says 100 feet. And I feel like I would be supportive of striking that for this evening and letting the zoning committee do their job, and let's see how this plays out. 100 seems really excessive to me, especially if we're going to go forward with the requirements of planting vegetation and making sure that we're cleaning up some of this old mess of letting parking lots be right up to the stream. So,
But that will take time.
yeah, that's all going to take time, but you know, you got to make steps in the right direction to get there, and that's what we're doing, so.
What do you think, Mindy?
How close are we to the zoning rewrite in this section? Can we pull it forward?
You're
The-
talking specifically about that increase in vegetation buffer?
Yes.
Got it.
Because it is my opinion that if you're gonna have a 100-foot buffer, that 100-foot buffer needs to be in the commercial and the industrial, the high-intensity uses. And if you're gonna step it back, it should be in the less intense uses, kind of like others have said tonight. But I also hear and understand that the 50-foot buffer is likely been put in place because of the fact that if it wasn't in place, those lots would be completely undevelopable. So can we pull in that you can't have a parking lot right up to the creek or right up to the,
And we have that. We amended the ordinance about a year ago to clarify that a parking lot is a structure. So those were approved, 3-4 years ago, but that's,
so do we have that planting requirement that's in the proposed that we could pull in now?
so that we don't currently have in the ordinance.
Right.
Can we make it a condition, or not, because it's not in the zoning ordinance now?
I think we could make it a condition of a site plan approval. We could also look at just expediting that section of the ordinance. That could be challenging just because it's not done at the district level. It's a separate section of the ordinance. And so I would be a little hesitant to jump in with that section without kind of vetting the entire zoning ordinance.
I'm just trying to think, so, I mean, if we're concerned, I mean, let's just take, for instance, this hotel where they've taken 3 properties and they want to try to put that there, and they're worried about the southern end of it, whereas near Mitchell Creek. Our current zoning ordinance, there's a discrepancy, but if they went with 100 feet, they could have 100 feet of whatever. It could be gravel, it could be nothing. There's no planting requirement. Is there a way we could, I'm just trying to think, for that particular hotel, is there a way we can make them have a good vegetative buffer without having a total adoption of the new ordinance? Because we can't make that a condition of site plan approval if they were to go forward with a site, we just looked at a sketch plan, right? We don't have that ability to make them do that if they were to come with a site plan
If that was
review.
part of their landscaping plan, then yes, we would have the ability to require that.
Didn't we bring this up with them, though? Like, would you be
We
willing to
We did.
work with us as far as a vegetation buffer if we went
We
with the
did.
50? Yeah.
They seemed pretty willing to work with us.
Well, we're giving them 50 feet, so yeah.
If there was a landscaping plan, then that would be a piece of enforcement. So we can't necessarily mandate, but if they provided a landscaping plan detailed with the native vegetation, then we could use that as an enforcement tool.
Don't they have to give us a landscaping?
Right, yeah. So
Like you
as
were
long
saying
as if they put that detailed information on a landscaping plan, because it's not, The ordinance doesn't specify that level of detail with the landscaping, but if they are required to provide a landscaping plan, and whatever's on their landscaping plan, they are required to provide.
On the last hotel that was approved, when they came back, because there was a problem with the parking, they were trying to get the parking closer to the creek, weren't they?
Are you talking about the Avid Hotel or the Stellar?
Talking about the one on the other side
I think you're talking about the one that's
of
vacant now.
Howard, or not the Howard, but the,
The one on the west side of the state park.
yeah.
Oh, the Hyatt House.
Yeah, the Hyatt.
Yeah. They are they're 50 feet, their parking lot is 50 feet from the creek.
But didn't they, I thought they came back and they were trying to get closer to the creek, and there was,
Wasn't there one corner or something?
Yeah.
It was that far west corner that was in question.
yep,
Yeah,
Yeah, it gets close to the property line, you can see.
yeah. But I don't remember how that turned out. It's been so long ago.
so they have a 50-foot there, with the parking lot being at the limits.
And that was when we changed it, around that time, to ensure that that the parking lots were considered a structure and set back from the creek.
So we had the state park map on our desks earlier. So obviously, those 3 lots are there. Do they have 100 feet at any point if they were creative and moved things around to be able to get it in there?
It's actually 3 lots north-south, it's here, these 3 lots.
These 3 lots
Yeah.
right here?
Yeah.
Going straight back.
And there's that weird corner at the intersection that's not theirs, it's,
The
Oh, yeah, it
county's-
belongs to the
County.
county.
Yep, I remember that.
Right.
I wasn't here for that sketch plan, so forgive me, I didn't see it.
What are they doing, Claire? What's their status?
With the Hilton Hotel?
Yeah, they come back with a site
They
plan?
have not come back yet with an
Are they
amended
waiting to
site
see what
plan.
we do here?
I mean, it's a big impact.
I agree. Why would you spend any more money if they can't do what they?
But didn't we just approve the other one at 50? So how can we not approve, if they come back, how can we not approve? I mean, we've already set a precedent.
To me, it's
been setting
moving this
precedents for a
footnote.
while.
It's a footnote where everything else says 50. If we were saying everything else is at 100 and this one person wants a special zoning ordinance to 50, then I would have a problem with it. But everything else is labeled as 50, and all we're doing is removing a conflict of a footnote.
Yeah, I think we've been setting a precedent for a while
Yep.
throughout the whole district, for better or worse. I think the good thing of all of this is it's kind of like raised this topic, frankly. I mean, and we've heard from the public several times, which is where this whole vegetative buffer thing came from, frankly, was the Lakes District conversations we've been having. It's not a new topic, but it is a new topic for kind of this focused area. So if you hear us kind of going back and forth, we're trying to put all pieces together. But generally speaking, yeah, we've been doing the 50-foot
doing the 50
the whole time. And we've seen, I mean, the property that's just east of Hopscotch.
That was a 15-foot because it's not a
Oh,
designated
yeah.
trout stream.
You're right, and they moved the stream.
Yes, they rerouted.
Seriously
Oh,
rerouted
yeah.
the stream.
How they did that? That was before my time.
That was wild. They did do a significant amount of landscaping throughout there, though, as well, which is way better than what was there for many years when it just sat dilapidated. So I'll give them that. But I'm in your head right now in thinking through all the deals that we've looked at in the not-so-distant past.
I think that we have, unless we can pull that language forward now, which I hear that we really can't, I think we have to remove that footnote. Or not, because we've been allowing it on other projects and move forward and then just either try to push that section of the zoning ordinance rewrite up or maybe not. Maybe we can get it in time,
Yeah, I feel you. I'm trying to think through too. I mean, when we look at any of these future uses or changes to them, there is a lot of scrutiny in terms of special uses in our review. And when we all go back to pulling a land use permit, what is that approval state? And so I think not our legislative, but our legal way to mandate that is exactly what Claire stated, which is that landscaping plan and kind of holding their feet to the fire.
But if
And,
they don't bring it up, we're stuck.
but we have the ability to ask that of them, though. I mean, as a part of site plan review.
We can't require it. We can
require it.
ask them, but we can't require it.
And we did ask them. I mean, when they were here for the sketch review, they seemed very willing, I thought, sincerely willing to work with us on the subject. And so, I mean, obviously, we can't require it, but I feel like they were pretty willing to do that.
We need a Peter here real quick.
What's the legal question?
The legal question is just tied to, like, what other mechanisms we could creatively think through to kind of accomplish the goal here? Because we're all kind of creating policy, but that is not zoning. Like, we've all got it in our head what we'd like to do, but
It would
this
have
isn't
to be
exactly
tied,
that.
it would have to have the legal teeth to it. It would have to be tied to a standard, and we don't
Yeah.
currently have the
That's-
standard in our ordinance.
Kind of goes back to what the precedent you've set as far as the other places with 50. For now, the time being is, that's where it stands. We're clarifying a footnote. And then now we're going through the zoning ordinance rewrite. And that's where we come back with the, buffers and plantings and stuff like that. That's the whole purpose of the rewrite, is to improve it. But for now, I feel like, unfortunately, we've set a precedent of 50 foot and clarifying a footnote.
Well, we've had a lot of discussion on this both ways. I mean, we've really got three options. We can kind of move forward as is. We can shoot it down. We can table it for more intel. It's at the board's discretion.
The one clarification I want to make is that if this doesn't move forward, then I, as staff, would interpret it as a 100-foot setback, just because we did find the footnote. And so
Got it.
the more restrictive regulation, just, that's kind of the practice of interpreting an ordinance. And so I would use the more restrictive
Even with the
regulation.
recent approval of the Hyatt House.
I mean, I would definitely confer with legal counsel, but I think the most appropriate way to administer the ordinance would be with the more restrictive standard.
Doesn't this one also do another thing, though? Doesn't it remove that 15-foot on the non-trout stream?
This draft amendment?
No? Okay.
Just removes the footnote.
The fun part of the job.
And the Board of Trustees makes the final determination.
True,
So This is
true.
a recommendation to the Township Board.
But if we don't take any action, there's no,
Right.
Well, I'm in favor of removing it. I think it makes it clear, and I think it'll be addressed in the new rewrite. So I'll make a motion to recommend approval, ZA 4-23, RB stream setback.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Carl, seconded by Paul, for approval of ZA 4-23, movement to the Township Board. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
no.
Okay. We'll interpret that as a pass. So we will move it forward to the Township Board. Do we want to do a roll call just for clarity purposes?
Yes. Richardson,
Yes.
Walters,
No.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Blossom,
No.
Ferguson,
Yes.
Edley.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you for the dialogue. Thank you for those who came here. And not the end of the conversation. It'll be on the next available township board meeting, likely in December. Okay, next on the agenda is ZA 5-23, overnight medical facilities. This is an intro and possible action to set a public hearing, new topic of conversation. So Claire, will you kick this one off?
Yes, so this is, let me grab my notes real quick. So this is our same site that we were looking at in detail for the child care center. We have another applicant before us interested in opening a mental health facility with the possibility of a substance abuse clinic. It's in the Peninsula Business Park located at 1368 Business Park Drive. Did a little research just on, there's a community, a 31 county community health needs assessment that was conducted in 2022 for Northern Michigan, identified a gap in available mental health treatment services across all age groups. I think that's what, we've seen in the news, anecdotal information, that there's a huge gap in the availability of those treatment centers. And so people are waiting for long periods of time and also going elsewhere to seek services outside of the region. So currently, our zoning ordinance allows for professional and business offices, including medical and dental, as long as they are not accommodating patients overnight. That's a use by right in both the professional office and industrial. So basically, this applicant is looking to get rid of the not accommodating patients overnight. That would be the simple text amendment to allow overnight medical-related facilities in both in the industrial district and potentially in the professional office, as those are kind of both the locations where medical facilities are currently permitted. So Planning Commission can consider a simple modification to the existing zoning ordinance just related to that, small modification of the text. That could be a public hearing that could be set for the December 5th meeting. Also, we could do a more comprehensive review of the zoning ordinance, and I've talked a little bit with Giffords Webster about, what other communities have done. I worked with Sam, and we looked at some other communities and how they've addressed these types of facilities. So some of the other land use types or definitions that would likely be applicable that other communities use, like a substance abuse clinic, rehabilitative medicine, health services, which can include overnight clinics. I believe that was Traverse City, medical centers, medical care facilities, mental health clinics. Districts that accommodate these types of uses often include like a hospital or medical district. So you'll see in communities, Petoskey, Traverse City, that have a hospital will oftentimes have like a medical district. And so that's a way of concentrating all of those types of medical-related facilities in one place for ease of care. East Bay Township, that likely wouldn't be a great approach, just because we don't have a ton of those types of facilities, and we have a regional healthcare system elsewhere. But the other types of districts that these facilities are oftentimes found in would be professional office districts, general commercial districts, and industrial districts, is what we saw in other communities. Some of the specific standards related to overnight medical facilities, they should be licensed and inspected by the state of Michigan. They should be, so any residential facility providing 24-hour supervision care, so requiring that if it is an overnight facility, that there's on-site supervision 24 hours a day. Also saw some distance separation from single-family uses. 500 feet was one that I saw in a few ordinances. And as I mentioned, the consideration of proximity to other hospital-related uses, which is likely less applicable for East Bay Township. So I know there's some complexity there. We are definitely, this was on our list of items to address with the zoning ordinance rewrite. So I think from my perspective, the Planning Commission has a few options. One would be to make kind of the slight modification if you see, these types of like overnight medical facilities as being appropriate in the industrial district and/or professional office. Or you can request that staff spend some time, comes back with some specific standards, definitions, those types of things, to take a more comprehensive look at this. Those would be the two options. Probably doesn't come as a surprise that the applicant's hoping to move quickly on it. It's got a, offer purchase agreement, hoping to open up that mental facility. And yes, the applicant is here, so, yeah.
I have a question for you. What district or what zoning is the sleep clinic over there off Munson in? Because in a sleep clinic,
That's professional office, I believe.
so in professional office, they can have an overnight, but industrial, they can't?
They can't have overnight in professional office. Professional
But a
office
sleep
and
clinic,
industrial.
isn't that what they do?
You would think, yeah, but that, I
do
mean,
overnight.
I can't give you, I don't have the details for when that was approved, but yeah, that is professional office. We haven't had any complaints about the overnight accommodation there.
I was just curious, because I guess where I'm going is that, when you're,
Is there a sleep clinic?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, right down there by that, what used to
It's
be a
in
hotel.
Foster.
Yeah.
The one attached to the old osteopathic hospital?
Oh, is it attached to it?
Yeah, it's the second floor on the back.
No, there was an individual one across the street in its own, I don't know if it's still there or not, but maybe they moved. But
The
anyway,
only sleep clinic.
there's one in East Bay.
Traverse today.
And I'm just trying to figure out why that would be allowed, because I mean, that is what they will do. You will go spend it. My son did it, so I know they do it. So, I'm just curious. I feel like if we're allowing medical in there, I don't know. I guess I would like to hear the arguments as to why you wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
So that's what I would like to hear.
Excuse me, you're talking about the sleep clinic that's off of airport access?
I don't know.
I think it's in the city of Traverse.
Yeah,
City.
that would-
The one
That's
that she's
Traverse
talking
City.
is
That wouldn't
in-
be-
Is it in Traverse City?
Yeah, that's in Traverse City. Traverse City becomes,
It wasn't off of airport access. It
Well-
was on Munson.
well, yeah, but Traverse City is at Avenue B.
Okay.
And even though
Okay.
East Bay runs along there, it's still Traverse City over there.
That answers that.
Oh,
And
yes.
Andrew is here. He's
That's helpful.
the applicant that.
Something.
I mean, obviously, you wouldn't want like hotels in there, but I mean, is that why we said no to it in an industrial, no overnight? Because we don't want it to become like where someone might put up a hotel? I'm just trying to figure out why it specifically says no overnight accommodations for any medical facility.
I don't know.
Come on, Mindy.
A third shift. in
Looking
I
at you,
need
Mindy.
you.
Yeah, you had something to say?
Come on, I know,
I do
right?
have something to say. I think we could just make this as a special land use in that area so that we can review, the distance from other facilities and the distance from residential neighborhoods. Especially in the professional office. Professional office district is what I'm more concerned about than the industrial district. But we do have residents getting pretty close to the industrial in the back.
Yeah, didn't we say there was one across from the school? Like on the other side of the school on 3 Mile, and then this one's right back behind the school? I thought that's what we said when we were doing the daycare thing.
The daycare one across from the school.
It's the
Where?
same property. Hold on, time out. We have the applicant here. I want to hear more about what brought this whole thing to light.
Good idea.
That'll help kind of paint the picture for us, so help us out a little bit.
Nice to meet you all. My name is Andrew Regal. I'm a psychiatrist here. I've been here since about 2018. And one of the things I can tell you about being a psychiatrist is there is a huge substance abuse problem here in the community. It is impossible to find treatment. In terms of all of northern Michigan, really your two options are ATS or Bear River. And especially when you target like more private insurance, there's really nothing in the area. So I think this is something that's absolutely needed, and it's been something where I've been trying to refer people, and sometimes I have to refer out of state, and sometimes I just can't refer because there just aren't beds. So this is something that's been very, very needed. I actually served as the medical director for Munson's substance use program for a while. So it's kind of one of these things I have firsthand experience, and I was just like, all right, there's a need. Why don't we fill it? Kind of from my perspective, is this is something that I see greatly benefiting the community with very little, if any, downside.
I had a question. Didn't Munson close their facility? Did it ever
Yes.
reopen?
No, so that's the residential treatment. They didn't do subacute detox.
Oh, oh, yeah, okay.
Claire, what is that treatment facility that's going in what is that, Indian Creek? What is that?
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but it's 6 or less, and so it's considered a single
group daycare.
family,
A
single
group-
family home use, and
Foster
so
care.
it's,
Usually,
yeah, that's the way that it's categorized by the state of Michigan. So there's the local units of government don't have any zoning
right.
authority over that, but it is classified as a adult foster care facility.
But is it, did we ever figure out what the intended resident of that is?
We did, and I don't have that with
Because
me.
I'll just say that there was a lot of public outcry on that particular,
We haven't had any complaints since it's been up in operation.
prior to its operation, there was a lot of community,
Pushback.
yes. So that's why I think the special land use would work well in the district so that we could at least get the radial, see if there's anything in there that is different than others, instead of just making it a use by right. I think it's needed, definitely needed. I just, if we can do a little bit more of the check and balances and have a little bit more say and control over it, I think that makes sense.
Curious if you would want to do the simple text amendment at this time for this particular case, because we know the distance separation, and then develop the special land use standards as a part of the zoning ordinance rewrite, or if you want to develop them now.
Would there be if we do the text amendment, would there still have to be a site plan review?
He
Is
was-
it new
yeah.
build?
Yeah, there'd still be site plan review as a use by right.
What's the state licensing on something like this? Is it
it's state licensed.
so it's a pretty good process then? Just like a daycare facility. So I'm in the same mindset as a daycare facility, where if we can make it slightly simpler for somebody doing through the state licensing, which they do a thorough check, I'm all for it.
I would be inclined to be in favor of it also.
I just don't think we're gonna get flooded with 50 facilities like this that wanna keep
Well, I was
people
just gonna
overnight. If
ask
we have to
him
go
how
through the
many he
state
could build,
licensing.
how quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. I mean, I'm a pharmacist by trade. I'm not practicing. I went to the dark side, but, yeah, we have a big problem in this community.
Yeah.
It's quite shocking. And I came from Grand Rapids, so I've seen a lot. But, yeah, we need this desperately.
Well, and I had a family member that needed to attend, and we had taken to Bear River, and it's a haul to get there, and, I mean, you go to Gaylord, because that's where the female facility was, and it's like, I was totally blown away that we did not have something here in Traverse City as big as we are. Like, aren't we the biggest little town in whatever, in northern Michigan?
Yeah,
We
I don't understand it.
It's
Not
crazy.
in the medical community, we're not,
I know.
don't have a kid with any problems at all. 'Cause there's nothing here.
It's crazy.
So it feels like we're supportive of this. and maybe keeping it simple,
I think so.
because we're going to get a little more in the weeds later. It sounds like it,
With the ordinance.
with the ordinance rewrite. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's no reason.
Time, or is that coming? In definitions, was that in our definitions last week? I forget.
We went through a big, long list of definitions last week.
I think we went through part one of the.
Part one of definitions. That was just 3 hours.
Let's,
So, how many parts are there?
Yeah.
So we can make a motion to update ZA 523 overnight medical facilities to remove the language "shall not accommodate patients overnight."
We have to make a public hearing for that.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can draft language based on that and bring it back for public hearing for the December 5th meeting.
Renee, that almost sounded like a motion.
I'll support that almost motion.
That was a motion.
Oh, it was a motion.
That was a motion.
To set a public hearing, okay.
To set a public
Yes.
hearing?
It
Good.
was.
Okay.
Grab that on the end.
And there, I heard an amended
With the help
second.
with Mindy. You shake it or, I want to hear it.
I'm good.
I think we got the gist of it, and I think Claire's got it all written down. So, that being said, a motion to consider staff drafting an amendment proposal for the next upcoming planning commission meeting in favor of the applicant's proposal. We'll leave it
Set
at
for
that.
public hearing.
And set for public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for bringing that forward. Okay, last new item is zoning amendment 6-23, medium density residential, and an intro and possible action to set another public hearing for discussion that we're going to lead by Claire.
Yep, and we have the applicant here, but, so the applicant is Live Communities. They are interested in purchasing the site of the current Headwaters, which is a couple apartments, as well as the site of the Brigantine Apartments, which put in all the foundations, didn't move forward. So, and maybe I never mentioned that to the Planning Commission, but
I
yeah,
haven't heard
they've
it.
got the foundation in and
I noticed.
it stopped.
Crazy.
So the application is for a zoning text amendment to increase the maximum dwelling units per acre in the moderate density residential zoning district from 5 units per acre to 8 units per acre. So the increase from 5 to 8 units per acre in moderate density residential is consistent with our 2023 master plan. It's consistent with the future land use map. It's also consistent with the future land use map that has been on file with the Planning Commission since 2015. So it's not a new future land use map. Also, the direction that we're headed with the zoning ordinance rewrite is, based on the recommendations from our consultants, Giffords Webster, is for the 8 units per acre. But I will also turn it over to Carl and Paul to provide some context on that process and our discussions, because I know that we did have some discussions about the residential zoning at the last meeting.
I didn't bring my notes, but I know that some of the proposals that were made, particularly on the minimum square footage and the proposals on some density issues, at this point, as I understand, are for debate. The thought process was that it seemed that cutting down or reducing down the minimum width of properties seemed to really be somewhat substantial. Also, the proposed minimum of what would be considered to be a housing which was at, I guess I can state it, 400 square feet, was among certain members considered to be much too small. And that it seemed to be very radical with respect to the proposals that were made for density. And from what I believe is that it's now gone back into the drawing board, and some additional work is going to be done to try and make the proposed new zoning, shall I say, more amenable to what would be considered living conditions, as well as some move towards density, with the hope of, hopefully on the side, bringing down the, making things more affordable for the working class housing, as they say. And that's my summary, and correct me if I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
and that's a good point, Paul, because there were a lot of different facets to the housing that we were discussing. We were discussing minimum lot width, substantial changes to that, substantial changes to the minimum lot size, substantial changes to the minimum dwelling size. And so I did want to just clarify that this proposed text amendment would only be changing the maximum dwelling units per acre from 5 up to 8. So it would be keeping the same building height, it would be keeping the same lot coverage, the same minimum floor area for one family, for two family, same living space dimension requirements. It would be keeping the same minimum lot width and the same minimum lot size. So all of that, under this proposal, all of that would remain the same. The only change that this applicant would be proposing would be for, related to multifamily, to go up to the 8 dwelling units per acre as opposed to the 5 that we currently have zoning. And
Density calculation.
Right, exactly. Because there is a lot more discussion to be had related to the other housing changes.
The applicant's here this evening, you've been very patient. Would you like to kind of comment on, or did we wrap it up?
Can answer questions if you have.
And maybe I'm just curious to ask you questions tied to Liv, if that's okay?
My name's Chuck May. I represent Liv. I'm based in Grand Haven. And I'll answer any questions about us or the developments you have.
My only inquisitive question is tied to the background on the company. You guys have been, when I looked at your map in terms of coverage, didn't see a lot in Michigan yet. And just curious where else, any developments that you have in the hopper throughout the state?
So big picture, we started in Michigan in 1989 or so under a different name, Investment Property Associates. And at one point, we had properties in Traverse City, Ludington, 4 in Grand Rapids, 1 in Spring Lake, 1 in Grand Haven. Most of those were in the 220 to 350 unit size range.
Okay.
Most of those were owned with various partnerships, 7 or 8 guys in an LLC. As some of those guys reached retirement ages in 2013 to 18, they wanted to sell. And so we sold most of those in the Grand Rapids, Spring Lake area. In 2008, IPA, Investment Property Associates, became a subsidiary of a high net worth family office. And that family office owned essentially 100% of our properties in Traverse City and in Ludington. And so we still own those, and so we own Liv Arbors in Garfield, and then we own 250 units in Ludington. That family office also then undertook the expansion of properties primarily in the Phoenix, Arizona Valley. And so we've built 8 to 10 projects out there and are still expanding there. Also expanding in Seattle and looking at some other areas around the country. Now, with market cycles, we're looking at Michigan again. And Traverse City, because of our experience with arbors in Garfield, we just have a whole lot of requests. We need more housing. And at arbors, we have wait lists and have for a long time. And so when this property came on the market, it's just a very interesting proposition for us because of the proximity to arbors and because of what we see of housing needs just through our people at Arbor saying, boy, if we had more units, we could help. Because there's, from what I understand, not enough units that are affordable, not enough units, period, and not enough units on both the small and large end to satisfy the need in the community. And so with Brigantine and with the request to increase the density, we see the ability to meet those needs.
Got it.
And our mantra is, if you look at our website, we talk about living a fullest life. And so we try to provide a communities where people just absolutely love to be here. And some of our tenants in Phoenix stay for 10 years, some longer. And so it's about amenities, it's about quality of life, and the prior discussion about units being too small and this and that, that's not us. We want units large enough that even our studios, people just feel spacious. And with the amenities between the dog parks and the clubhouses and the pools and services and so forth, people just feel like home. And most of our tenants come from referrals. So that's who we are.
Got it. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Good background. And then as far as like, I'm just being nosy now, but unit size, you guys target, you kind of have like a ballpark
Our average size at Arbor is about 920 square foot.
for two-bedroom?
That's average across all the mix.
Got it.
What I think, and we're still early in designing and scheduling this thing, what I think the demand is for larger, so 3-bed, 2 baths. And so those would be 1,100, 1,200 square feet. And there's a big demand for studios simply because of price point. And so I don't know what the unit mix leans to. Is it 40% of those, and 40% of those, and 20% in between? I don't know yet. The other thing we're doing in Phoenix that we have high demand for is build-to-rent single family. And so it might be that we schedule half of the allowable units as single-family homes. And we build a neighborhood of 1,500 to 2,000 square foot homes on this site that are all rented. And so those people, we meet the market need of small, affordable homes that can be rented, because with rates going up these days, of course, debt service has gone up so much that houses are not as affordable as they were just 2 years ago. Well, now we have rental homes that are affordable and the size that people are needing. They're bigger than our 3-bed, 2-bath apartments, but they're homes. And those people have use of the clubhouse and the fitness center and all these sorts of things. But where that plays out with unit mix across the whole site, we just don't know yet.
Okay. I appreciate that. It's good context. Thank you.
So I hear the word affordable all the time because of what I do, but what does affordable suggest to you for pricing? I mean, do you guys have an idea, or? I'm just curious because I hear that so often, and when the following sentence is what they're offering, and I'm like, how is that affordable to the working class here?
Yeah.
I mean, they're almost a contradiction, so I'm just curious.
The average rent per unit in Traverse City market right now is about $1,600 a month. Of course, if more supply comes online, and if we can get more scale at one site, then in theory, we can be as affordable as that. The hard part right now is construction costs.
I know, I do understand that.
I have a vague answer to your question,
No,
but
I totally understand that. I just wondered what your take was on that.
yeah,
Because
if-
I hear the term, it's almost used so loosely anymore, and I'm not accusing you of doing that, so please don't think that. But I hear that term so often, and yet it's an absolute contradiction to what is truly affordable here in this area.
Yeah.
To what, I mean, I have kids working, they're the working class.
Yep.
They would not be able to afford that. They would not.
Right.
No, so guess what? They had to move outside of this area and
Yeah.
now have to travel to this,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, they drive 45 minutes to work. And it's like, I just don't know how any of this is going to get fixed.
affordable is a relative term, and so
Yeah.
affordable relative to what?
Right.
I don't have a hard answer right now.
No,
I also manage commercial office buildings around West Michigan. I manage a medical office building attached to the North Ottawa Hospital, now Trinity Hospital in Grand Haven. And I have guys who service my fire alarm system. And so last month, a guy was coming because I had a glitch in the software. So he calls me and he's, how do I get into the building? Because I was up north, and I said, here's the code and all this, get down. And I like to know who my guys are. And he was new, so I, where are you from? Traverse City. Oh, how long you been in my area? 10 months. Why'd you come? Couldn't afford to live there. So when you lived there, did you do what you do here? Yeah, I did. I said, where'd you live? He said 45 minutes east of Traverse City, and he had to drive into Traverse. We can't solve that issue, but I bet we can do something that'll meet the market needs, because if we can't build it and make any money. So that will be the goal.
I would just add one thing to that. I do think that as supply increases, that does address some of the affordability,
Yeah,
but
supply
I
and
think
demand.
the other piece, I mean, there are definitions of affordability, and much of that is below market rate, and so that's where a lot of the, the financing options come in, and I'm hoping that, we can partner with some of these multifamily housing developers to set aside portions of the development to have it be below market rate so that it meets those affordability definitions within our region, that, people aren't paying more than 30% of their income towards housing, more than 50% to transportation and housing. And so there are, and that's part of the reason that we're hoping to bring in Yarrow to talk a little bit about the kind of the complexities with affordability and the definitions.
I like that. That's great.
Are you familiar, I'm sure you are, but Renee, when you want to, as a township, if we want to put our money where our mouth is, we have an opportunity with leveraging the new TIF legislation through MISTA. So in the future, let's say that there was some cleanup that needed to be done on site, as well as maybe even some infrastructure that you needed to put in there. Financially, we could participate with them, in theory. If they threw us a bone and said, hey, 20% of those units are going to be set at 80% of the area median income, as an example. We're just throwing numbers out here now for fun. But that may be a leverage point to build in some affordability to these deals with helping out with the bottom line, to finance some of those eligible activities, we'll call it, to try and help develop the site. Because otherwise, there's no reason why, other than your good graces, that you would build in affordability to a deal if you're a developer, right? But if financially, the community participated in something like that, which is totally legal and possible, that's something that could be a conversation in the future as a way for the township to implement affordability into new deals like that. Because otherwise it won't happen. It just won't.
And that's what we'll have Yarrow come speak to, are some of the different financing opportunities to participate in. And I believe the eligible activities include basically related to any development-related activities related to housing. So I think it's very broad.
Feels pretty open. But for density purposes, because I would like to go feed a couple little people. For density purposes this evening, I feel like we're on board as a crew. I appreciate you divulging and chatting with us for a bit. Thanks for bringing this forward. Sounds like it's right in our wheelhouse. Any other discussion on the topic at hand?
So with the zoning ordinance rewrite, I'm just reading Judy's letter. So is it something we're looking to do, is request a potential partnership or ask for a potential partnership with new
We-
developers, and there's a certain kind of threshold we're looking for?
We're looking to offer height and density bonuses up to 25% of the total density. So in this case, it could be up to 10 units per acre as opposed to 8. This would be part of the rewrite, so this all needs to be vetted. But as drafted, we're considering if, by providing a certain percentage of the units to be affordable as defined, based on Grand Traverse County median household income, there'd be certain affordability guarantee requirement, certain period, certain percentage of area median income to allow an increase in density as a way of incentivizing. But that's, again, we're exploring that, and so that hasn't been finalized in the ordinance yet.
Right.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So we just
Set a public hearing.
need a motion to set a public hearing? Okay, I'll move to set, let's see, where are we? Sorry. I'll make a motion to set a public hearing on ZA 6-23 moderate density residential dwelling units per acre for the next available township board meeting, or no, our meeting, next available meeting for us.
Support.
Okay. We have a motion of approval from Carl, seconded by Renee, to set a public hearing for December's regular planning commission meeting for consideration. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Appreciate you bringing that up. And we'll keep this ball rolling. Public comment session 2. Sam, what do you think? No? You're good? All right. Anybody else? Any takers on public comment number 2? Mm-hmm.
Do you need my name again? Stacy Slater. Stacy Slater, 854 Pine Grove. I know you've already set regarding the overnight medical facilities. Yes, we, of course, need something like this. I want the commission to educate themselves on the difference between a sleep clinic and a substance abuse 24/7. I think that's a great place for it. I'm not disregarding that, but I would rather, the text amendment, do a deep dive, do it properly, maybe do it so we can have those types of things, but that's a big commitment. Yes, it's needed. I think it's a great location for it, but don't just wave it off so quickly. There's a big difference. I teach mental health. I'm well aware of, we have 3 providers in the Upper Peninsula for all of the psychiatric care up there. It's horrible. We have nothing up here. But just do it right so that we can build on that and make it inviting rather than just kind of, things slip through the cracks, like the 50-foot setback. So, anyway, just please think about those things before you just rubber stamp them through. Okay? Thank you.
Appreciate the insight. Thank you. Going once, going twice. Okay. Future agenda items, anything come to mind? Besides housing and housing TIF and ways we can financially participate in future projects to build in affordability to every one of these deals? Beyond that. Yeah. Okay, upcoming meeting dates is, if we want to do one more zoning ordinance subcommittee, November 15th, which you will not see me at, unless it's in a blind and I'm Wi-Fi'd in, silently listening, because I won't be participating. And then December 5th at our next regular planning commission meeting.